Welcome to Book Club for Movies, everybody. It's May 30th. I'm Ryan Miller, and 8 minutes ago, he was still Matt Amberg.
That's true. 8 minutes ago, I was still Matt Amberg. I continue to be.
I'm sorry. 8 minutes ago, we were recording Tuesday's show. If you didn't tune in, it was great. 8 minutes before we started recording that, you were Matt Amberg watching our movie of the week.
That's right.
Was that okay? Just want to make sure I had that straight.
Got to finish things up.
Because this is Book Club for Movies, where self-explanatorily we watch a movie and talk about it in a fashion
much like you would in a book club if you had a book.
There you go. But you've got a movie. And this week it's Triple Frontier.
That's right.
The Netflix
There's
original.
not just one Frontier. Not even two.
It's the worst title of any movie we've done so far, I think.
Whole Frontiers. And yes.
It's a stupid title.
I understand the reference. I get the reference to the title.
I'm not sure I do.
It's because where the movie takes place, there's like it's a landmass that connects 3 different countries, I think.
Really?
Yeah, so it's
wow.
There's they're really close together, so it's
did not pick that up. I mean, I'm sure it's got a deeper meaning than that.
I looked it up. It was in a Google thing. I didn't know that. That's not some weird piece of knowledge that I carry around. Oh, by the way, let me share with you my incredible depth of knowledge in regards to South America.
So where to start with this thing? I mentioned this because I had heard some things. Sorry, what?
Normally I would do a synopsis here. I have not prepared a synopsis, and I think the understanding is because I just finished watching the movie.
You can't do do a off the cuff 30-second. No, actually, that's a pretty long synopsis.
Okay,
3-second synopsis.
You want I'll try and do an off the cuff synopsis.
Okay, I'll count you down.
I don't remember what was he army? Is that what he was when he comes back to get everybody? I can't remember what he was doing in Colombia. What was Oscar Isaac doing? He was a mercenary, right?
Was he a PFC of sorts? He was a Josh Brolin-ish?
I think he's a okay. All right.
That's it. And we did it, everybody.
Okay, here we go.
Synopsis.
Let me see if I could do this. All right. I'm trying to think of a word here.
We could do a combo synopsis. I could give you a word and then you would have to continue on. It'd be like a Mad Lib synopsis.
That'll go very well.
Here we go. No, this will work. Ready? Ready?
Okay, all right.
Here goes. Ready? Ben Affleck.
Oscar Isaac. Pedro Pascal. I can't remember anybody else.
In South America, decide to
meet up and hang out and get money from a drug dealer.
It's turning into a romantic comedy.
That's right. There are all sorts of guns. When a mercenary from South America gets together with his former army buddies to take down a drug dealer that he's been hunting for years, they find out his house isn't just an armory, it's a bank. But not a real bank, because it's a house filled with money in the walls.
Of America.
Except South America.
South America. Oh, it's maybe the best one we've ever done. Triple Frontier, aside from having the worst title of any movie, was something that I heard about on the internet.
That seems like a weird place to hear things.
Yeah, Ben Affleck did an okay job. It's about army guns. Whatever. But this is a movie I heard about just around, and it looked like it might be interesting enough. Me and you have talked about this before, about how army movies are just not our thing. They're just the most unattractive movie on its face.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right off the bat. I'm not sure I could tell you exactly why.
Yeah, I don't know. There are only a handful of those types of movies I can get into. I will always say The Great Escape, fantastic movie.
Well, hold on.
I don't know that I count
on
it
my
as
list,
an
then.
Army movie. The same thing with The Dirty Dozen. It's an army movie, but it's not.
I don't know if I've seen that one either. See, I told you I didn't like army movies.
The Great Escape, though. The Great Escape has Donald Pleasance in it. It's got Steve McQueen, Charles Bronson, and it is It's one of the best World War II
Greatest
movies.
Escape. Great.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And it's fantastic. It's a great movie. Like that is just a fantastic film.
Kind of should have done that one. Is that what you're thinking?
I'm thinking that you should just check it out. It's it's like 3 hours. That's
definitely going to check it out. And honestly, throughout Triple Frontier, there were two movies that kept coming back to mind. One of them was The Hurt Locker.
Sure.
And the other was Sicario, which I guess loosely defined is not an army movie.
I'm with you.
It's neither of those movies, for sure. And I don't know what I expected, really. I think most of all, I was just getting into it because Oscar Isaac was in it.
Yeah, sure.
And since seeing him in Inside Llewyn Davis, nobody can blame me. No, but absolutely nobody can blame me.
No, it's impossible to put blame on you.
So I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I trusted Oscar Isaac.
Right. No. It's that he's got something, and you're hoping that this is still going to be he's discerning with his choices, and that this is going to be one of those ones where he read this and went, this is way better than it needs to be or should have
I've heard him talk about filmmaking and his career and stuff like that. And while he's very good at it, he also seems very conscient. Like, I came into him from Star Wars, so it's been a very backwards type of journey for me.
Sure.
But even hearing him talk about Star Wars, it's like, okay, he knows, right? So going into this thing, we're introduced to the main characters pretty quickly, I want to say. Definitely within the first act, but early on in the first act. And we get Charlie Hunnam giving pep talks to, are they veterans? I think they're veterans, right? Like they're back.
They're veterans that are I think they're still enlisted, and I think they're on their way out, which is why he's talking about don't join a private firm, don't become a mercenary, basically.
Okay. And he's the most high-minded we see, I think, of all of the members so far. We get Oscar Isaac, who is still out there. He is a mercenary of sorts. He's hunting a drug dealer down in South America somewhere.
South America.
Mr. Map, do you know where it was exactly?
I feel like they were in Colombia, but I don't remember.
Okay. I want to say Peru.
They go to Peru. They go to Peru. They take.
Oh, sorry, because they have to get to the ocean.
They take they have to get to the ocean. They take the two people over the border.
We've got Pedro Pascal, who has gotten out but is in trouble, he intimates, for running coke, I believe. Is that right? He's the pilot.
Yeah.
And this is Oscar Isaac after his first, we see his one, not the first run-in of the movie with this drug dealer corporation or whatever. And then he gets wind of this possible, basically end all, like take out the drug dealer, take all his money type thing. And eventually ends up not taking the contract and just doing it all himself with his own team. And I don't even remember, I don't remember where that contract was even coming from. There are things about the movie that I wasn't.
Yeah. So the contract it's a contract he signed with the Colombian government.
Is that what it was? Okay.
And he is essentially saying, well, instead of fulfilling the contract, why don't we just go do it ourselves? And
okay, so he assembles his team of ex-comrades in arms. Yeah. Ben Affleck being their commander, I believe, right?
It sounds like it. Yeah, it sounds like he was the head of operations.
Pretty sure. Yeah, he's reassembled whatever they were doing for the United States military, and they're now doing it illegally. In fact, I think that's one of my favorite scenes of Ben Affleck's is when they do finally get the team together. And you can go back and talk about anything I'm skipping over here.
No.
And he gives them his version of a pep talk where he's basically like, make no mistake, we are criminals. What we are about to do is going to be criminal. We're going to break and enter, and we're going to murder one person, right? The best case scenario he's talking about.
So the movie, like, I think one of the things with the flick too is that it's for a 2 hour long movie, by the way, it's 2 hours and 5 minutes. For a 2 hour long movie, this thing kind of moves at a clip. Like there's definitely some stuff that I think could be trimmed out, but I think it moved pretty fast, and I think it moved quickly because they kind of were just always shifting. There's a part towards the end where it's like, come on, go faster. I get that you can't, but why are we stuck dealing.
This wasn't because you were about to record in 8 minutes.
No. It was actually
just
because it
checking.
was like you do not have to show us this much time of them dragging 100 bags from point A to point B. We get it. It's hard.
Yes. And you know what the strange thing is? I don't think I would cut a single thing. And I don't know if I can tell you exactly why. Like, there are scripts where I can tell you, this can't lose any part of the story.
Sure.
I don't think I could say that about this story, but about the film itself, I wouldn't cut anything. And not only did it move quickly, like I sat down to watch this at midnight thinking I would get an hour in and then finish the rest this morning. I couldn't turn it off. And I wasn't falling asleep.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So whatever it was, and maybe we'll get to it by the end of this, it held my attention, and it's, I would say, better than good. And let's qualify that, I guess, is where I'm going. And honestly, I want to go back because I skipped over some stuff I wanted to mention, because early on in the film, and I think this is part of the reason I don't connect with movies, quote unquote, army movies, as we've been calling them so far, is because they do have a tendency to be, for extreme lack of a better term, kind of bro-y.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's that the film version of the military brotherhood. It's the same thing that they do with cops and the thin blue line nonsense.
Are they going to play up the jingoism? Is it all,
Right.
This is what Hunter Killer was. Like the Hunter Killer was for people to sit down, watch the, because there is a team of special forces in there, and be like, dude, yeah. Which I say at movies all the time, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But not at moments like that for, very, very pandering moments. Anyways, there at the beginning of this film, you see Oscar Isaac on a helicopter while hard rock music plays in the background.
Metallica.
And is that who it was?
Yes.
I believe you. But it immediately sets up this will it, won't it for me in my head, because that, at the very beginning, that's the movie I don't want to see. Like, I don't want to see the war movie that's set to Metallica for the whole time without any sort of commentary.
When that kicked off, I was like,
here we go, right? Yeah,
Yep.
exactly, right? And then, just as quickly, it cuts to, I'm sorry, okay, no, I've had this background. It starts off with the music and the helicopter, and then it cuts to Oscar Isaac, and he's listening to that song on his headphones. So I'm sorry, I always apologize when I use this word, but the music is diegetic. It's coming from somewhere inside the movie, which is completely different than you being force-fed an opener cut to, it's the difference between Suicide Squad and any other movie, right? Suicide Squad is just a bunch of stupid music videos right up front. Yes, the music has to do with what they're telling you, but in the worst possible way, right? So there's a very interesting will it, won't it set up for me immediately with this movie, in that will it be that type of movie or won't it? Right?
Sure.
That's just the very first, like, that's at the forefront now for the rest of the movie for me. And while I will say that I think it can get, and maybe it's because they're purposefully flirting with it, it can get kind of bro-y, like kind of jingoistic, and maybe that's there to get you into that, so that the last half of the film can pay off in a different kind of way. I will say, regardless, once they get to South America, they storm that house and they leave that house, it's freaking great filmmaking. Like, I was on the edge of my seat. It's tense. It's cut well. There are character moments that enter into the action and none of it's necessarily breaking any barriers. Like Affleck's the guy that they have to convince to do it. He gets into it, and now he's also the one they have to convince to leave, to stop taking. They get to the compound and find that the walls are, and we're going to spoil this movie, by the way. We should mention that at some point for everything we do.
We really need to just start saying that at the top of the show.
Top, yeah, that would probably
really
be
do.
best. But they find out there's money in the walls, and Affleck's like, keep taking the money, but he's also the one that set the timetable. So they're like, we got to go. And he's like, no, I gave us a buffer. Like, we've got time. So they're like, okay, do we believe him or whatever? I guess we have to. He's the commander. Like, they still listen to what he says. But all that in the house was great. I super enjoyed it. I don't know how you felt.
Yeah, I think the house bit, I agree with you. At the minute they got to South America, the movie kicks off really, really strong, and it stays going for pretty much the entire thing. Like at a pretty I wouldn't say, I don't think it was as tense or edge of your seat for me as it sounds like it was for you, but it was totally a movie that I was like, I was watching, I was there, I was engrossed in it. I wanted to see how it ended. I wanted to. It wasn't just one of those things where I was, I can passively watch it back and forth and I'll look at my phone. I was into it. It's a good movie.
It didn't seem boilerplate. Like, I've seen a lot of movies where that whole sequence is just absolutely boilerplate, and I just don't care. It's
so funny that you mentioned that, because I was watching the movie and I was thinking about how much there are, like, and I will probably not be able to explain this in the right way, but I think you're going to understand it.
Bookclubformovies.com.
It's that okay, so you've got a boilerplate. And this movie has this giant boilerplate on it because it has so much boilerplate stuff to it. However, it's like, just hold on. Like,
I feel like I'm not going to understand this because you're just going to say the word boilerplate 500 times.
It's like they took the standard for this type of movie and they created that like frame. And then they pulled apart little bits and just twisted them. So you have a general framework, you have a general template for what this movie is, but then everything inside of it is so much more. Like, it changes in directions that you didn't necessarily expect. There is some really, really straight up fantastic dialogue in this movie. Yep. There are some really, really good lines back and forth that are impactful. Like, they're not just goof lines. They're good discussion lines. And even when they're all kind of getting into it in the house, where they're going back and forth trying to figure out, are we leaving? What are we doing? That dialogue, that might be the best dialogue in the movie, because there's, and I guess, you know what, I'm wrong, because there was some tense moments right there. That whole bit in the house where, when are they going to leave? When are they going to go? Holy crap. There's still, because you've got Affleck saying, I want to keep getting money. And then you've got Ben, I think the guy's name was Benny, one of the other guys, Garrett Hedlund's
younger dude, I think.
Garrett Hedlund's character was like, I'm still good with getting more money. Let's get more money. And everybody else,
even he jumps off that before Affleck does. He's like, okay, now we got to go.
Right, but he's the last one, and he's like, okay, like, there's no question for him. And those sequences were really, really great. The part that I was talking about that I could have felt like there could be a trim is, we get to a point where they're supposed to take all this money. They've got it in a van. They're going to take it and put it on this helicopter that's then going to take them over the Andes to the ocean. As soon as they get to the helicopter, Pedro Pascal has measured and weighed all of the money, and he's like, we can't do this.
It's way more money than they planned for.
And it weighs way more than they planned for. So they're like, screw it, we're going to do it anyways. This causes the helicopter to essentially crash. We have now them trying to figure out, how do we bring all this money back? So they start like tying these things up, and then you get a freaking Lord of the Rings style movie for like half an hour, where it's basically just watching Sam and Frodo walking towards Mordor, dragging all this money. Like, and I think the thing that bothered me about it was, like, this movie for the most part is kind of like, yeah, okay, I can kind of see this all happening. And then this, and I'm like, well, credulity is not just strained. You have pooped on it and broken it in half. I just don't believe any of this. I'm out at this point.
I can see absolutely where you're coming from. And I think the reason I get over that part is where I think the movie really had something to say. And again, I feel like it's not necessarily treading new ground. Like, you're watching the journey of Oscar Isaac. You know, you start the movie with him. He's essentially your protagonist here. You're watching him make the transition from what's more important, the money or people type thing. Because, I mean, super spoiler here. At some point, and we're glossing over so much, I feel like this movie is way more subtle than it has any right to be. and effectively so. And a lot of it goes to the performances.
Oh yeah. Really good.
All just really good. But I think where I'm able to put up with that movie at that point is because Oscar Isaac's character is attached to that money.
Pope.
Is it Pope? Really?
I think he was Pope.
All right. Does a bear pope in the woods? He's attached to that money. See, this is where we differ. We ruined the show by making jokes. This movie did not ruin itself by making. I can't think of a moment of levity in it. Really?
No, there's no real like gags at all. It's fairly serious all the way through.
There's no one-liners. I mean, wonderfully so. Like it's an incredibly smart decision. But at that point in the movie where they're dragging the money, Oscar Isaac hasn't come to peace yet. He's still attached that money to Ben Affleck in a way. It's not so much that he's so greedy. He's not the over-the-top villain who's, he's not Indiana Jones grasping for the grail or anything like that, right? Like, he just thinks it's one and the same almost. He's like, Ben Affleck's character died for this money, and we're not going to get rid of it. And that's when Garrett Hedlund?
Hedlund.
He's like, he didn't die for this money. He died because of this money.
Right.
And that's kind of the beginning of the decoupling.
Great line too.
Yeah. Right.
And it's one of those lines that it's so very simple, but it's the delivery on it. Like he absolutely crushed that delivery.
They all do with all of and you're right. The dialogue is great. Yes, the story, it's one of those instances where it is drug out. Like, there are moments that you could lose and you wouldn't lose the thread. Like, or you might lose the thread, but you wouldn't lose the story, right? I mean, the story is they're going to the ocean, right? You could lose a lot of that in between and they're still going to the ocean. But all of the development that they hit, the threads that they do pull on along the way, I wouldn't lose any one of them. And yes, there is a point where you're like, why are they still trying to grab all this money, even though it's like $200 million or something, I put up with $200 million for probably a lot longer than you might think.
Oh, sure. You're kidding me? No. It's not that. It's not the money that bugs me. It's like I get why. It's that there were enough shots that you could trim 2 seconds here, 4 seconds there of them just walking, where we get it.
Oh, okay.
We know where they're going. You can show us there's one sequence where I seriously was like, you have actually given no addition of information here. This whole scene could be gone, or show 2 seconds of it. And it's where they're one of them's on the top of the mountain. They've got the pulleys and they're pulling up why are you sitting there for 3 minutes on this shot? Why are we seeing them do pulleys and kind of like they're not even really talking to each other?
I don't remember the dialogue from that scene. So
there's next to nothing there like that. And that's something where, again, you could take that dialogue and move it anywhere else.
Actually, you want to say it's functional. Yeah, they're just talking about what they're going to do next, because once they're over that ridge, they should be able to see the ocean, and it's all downhill from there.
Right. And it's like, great, you could say that and just move on. we don't need another, we don't need a full 2 minutes of seeing them do pulley stuff.
Yeah, no, decisions like that are the hard ones when it comes. I mean, what the kind of a statement was that? Are some of the hard ones when it comes to filmmaking, because you're like, I need to communicate in what environment am I going to get this point across, when really the point is all that matters.
Right.
So they either roll that into another moment or they give it its own shot, and so the balance can be tenuous.
Indeed. So I want to go jump back a little bit, because we've glossed over a bunch of stuff.
We have,
but
much.
I want to address the impact of Ben Affleck's death. I loved that death for a lot of reasons. One of them being, it wasn't overly dramatic in how it was presented. It was very matter of fact, and the callback that you knew this was coming. It was something that, for me, as soon as I saw the situation, I was like, oh, that kid is definitely coming back in some way. But essentially what happens is when the helicopter crashes, all the money kind of lands in this cocaine field. They go to try and get their money back. There kind of is a standoff, and Ben Affleck and I think Ben Affleck and Oscar Isaac end up shooting a couple of
Ben
the guys.
Affleck and Pedro Pascal, I want to say, and I can't remember which one fired first. But
it was Affleck. It was totally Affleck.
Okay.
I'm convinced it was Affleck because that's why the kid was so mad at him. But
he, regardless of who started first, he shot the kid's father.
Right. And then they pay off like the village elder, and the kid is standing in the way of them when they're trying to leave the village, and the elder yells at him to get out of the way. And so as the group are making their way through the countryside, they end up at a point where they can't take donkeys up because they've got to, and this is right where it's right around this, I think, the time when they do the pulley thing. But they end up getting pinned down by some gunfire, and they do their army thing where they start splitting up and doing stuff. And Affleck has a guy lined up, and he shoots him, and then the kid just creeps up right behind him. Affleck turns around and bam, dead. Just it's not like a long thing,
right in the head.
And it was like, and it's not a gory thing. His head doesn't blow up or anything. It's just matter of fact, and it's so powerful because it's matter of fact.
There's no gasp. There's no,
right.
It's just, that's it.
And then the kid is killed almost immediately. And then that whole sequence of the guys finding him and losing their
tempers.
That's not the right word. But the guys all find him, and they all start, the emotions start blowing up because the person who originally didn't want to do this then was only going to do the recon, who then got so caught up in it that he couldn't get himself out, is the one that gets killed.
Right.
And it's like, there's a perfect tragedy to that character, especially seeing him go from a failing realtor who we know was previously a, military man, back to, maybe he lost a step or two, but like, I don't know.
Well, the movie is about, like, that's one of the threads. Like, it is about veterans and where they go and what they do and what they're worth in a lot of ways. And there is a push and pull because some of it is a little bit fantastic, while I may enjoy that moment in the house for its action, like you enjoy the action of the movie at times, it's not because it's reveling in it, really,
No, because it's not. They don't do the Rambo thing here. This is not like it's not them going in and just murdering everybody.
But they do. Sorry, they don't just go in and murder everybody, but they do the Rambo thing. I think that's something that people gloss over so often with the first Rambo, is the reason that thing hit is because of veterans, right? Like, they do the Rambo thing in a way.
I guess I mean more First Blood Part 2, where it's the UHF thing.
They don't do the UHF Rambo thing. You are correct.
Which is disappointing.
But I think there is that question. I think that's definitely a thread in this movie.
Sure. I go with that.
I have issues with the ending maybe because of that. But yeah, I totally agree with everything you've said. And Ben Affleck's death is great. And the moment, in fact, it's another good example of another thing I like from this movie. When I say that it's more subtle than it has any right to be, they are able to pull each other back from their respective caricatures at times, because traditionally you see a movie like this and Ben Affleck's character goes over the top and becomes the bad guy by the end of the film, basically, like out and out, right? Or he has a showdown with Oscar Isaac at some point that's like, dude, what's happened to you?
Right.
We didn't sign up for this or something. But they don't do that. All throughout the movie, at key points, they are able to pull each other back. And I forget who does what to who, but so for one example, when they are going to get the money, and Ben Affleck numerous times is like, no, we got time, they are able to finally bring him back from that. And it's not in a, big blow up or anything like that. It's just like, hey, we got to go. And Affleck's like, okay, all right, we got to go. And there are moments, there's another moment where they're walking the mules along the cliff, and Pedro Pascal's mule falls off, and people start yelling at each other. And I think Oscar Isaac this time is able to be like, hey, cool it, let's go. Or no, maybe Pedro Pascal is the one that's able to, I don't know.
Pedro Pascal is the one who gets everybody moving.
Like they're able to realign in a way that's not like any other movie that I hate, where it's a study of how the group slowly falls apart and blah, blah. Like, it's not that really. like you get the feeling that they're dealing with the dynamic they've always dealt with, and that they're able to hear each other throughout their own noise, which I think is so different for a movie like this.
Sure. I also just want to point out that in that sequence where his donkey falls down, I appreciate the fact that I think it was Oscar Isaac is like, what the hell is wrong with you? That was a living creature. And like
it's a nice touch.
Reminding them that it's not just about the money, because easily Pedro could have been the one that fell. Like it's a, and
after they've killed so many people already. I mean, more people than they wanted to. Yeah. And I guess that's
right.
Maybe something we haven't touched on yet, but the plan kind of goes to crap in that they don't just murder one guy, they murder several guys trying to leave the compound because they return. And so yeah, that line from him at that moment is really great. You know, like, I mean, it's a living creature. Like, you've killed so many people so far. Like,
right. Well, and I think it's one of those, like, you know, it's a subtle moment of the reminder, and they talk about this, and the PTSD stuff comes up too with it's actually brought up early on by Charlie Hunnam in one of his talks. It is that kind of like almost a dehumanization, and the donkey is that, you know, great reminder of yeah, we had to kill people, we didn't want to, but the, like, you know, life man. And I think that's why Oscar Isaac is smartly in the middle of this movie, is because he does that so well. He plays a man that in so many ways appears to be in it for the money. But again, maybe it's that thing, like I mentioned early on, that it's one and the same for him. Like, he doesn't distinguish so much until the very end. And even then, before we get to the very end, there's still two things I want to mention. And when I say that the two movies that kept coming back to mind were Hurt Locker and Sicario, this doesn't look as good as a Sicario. Hurt Locker, I didn't enjoy. I think it was overwrought, was the word I always go to when talking about that movie. Sure.
This avoids that completely for me. It probably walks a fine line. I could see another person watching this and not agreeing with that statement. And saying it doesn't look like Sicario is not fair, I think, probably. Anyways, but Sicario, I feel like, also fell into its themes. I don't know. That cinematography just helps.
You
so
can't.
Much.
You can't. If you Roger Deakins, right? Like that's unfair. It's like saying, hey, this is a really cool comic book, but all the artwork sucks because it's not Alex Ross. You know, okay, it's like all right. You know,
and not that Triple Frontier looks bad. Like, there were actually plenty of really good shots and moments in there, but the ending, the very, very end.
Definitely the weakest part.
Okay, well, there's a really high and a really low for me. They get their money. They all entrust it to Ben Affleck's family, I believe, is what happens. So they don't technically walk away with, I think, any of it, do they? They give it all to Affleck's family.
They give it all, yeah.
And it's Hunnam and Isaac out in the street after they've said goodbye to everybody. But it's that goodbye to everybody that is my high. And they each give each other a hug. And it's not like a high five. It's not like a fist bump. It's not like a chest bump. They give each other hugs and they say, I love you, in the most genuine way I think I've ever seen in any movie like this. And it makes a difference, man. Or ever heard in
your life. Like, you looked at your wife and you're like, nope.
It's okay. It's not that bad. That would have been, you know, still pretty refreshing, actually. But no, they do it in a way that completely, I'll use another word that I'll apologize for, eschews that whole, you know, bro-y vibe. Like,
sure.
They are unashamed of this love. And it's not like a wartime thing. You know, it's not like a chest bump or a man, yeah, and this, that. It's just so genuine, and in a way that's so, like, I felt, man, I don't know if I teared up, but I would tear up. Again, would recommend tearing up.
Sure, fair enough. Did not tear up over here.
Okay. I completely bought into it. And I think it's mostly the performances. They're all really good. And it's just in a way that, you know, other men would make fun of, you know, like, oh yeah, I love you too, man, you know, type thing. The fact that they're unashamed of that. And I feel like, you know,
and I thought it was I thought it was actually a super brave choice to have Pedro Pascal and Charlie Hunnam like actually go in on that kiss.
Yeah, no,
like,
and just that it lasted 5 minutes. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, like there was some sloppy action going on there. All I'm saying is Charlie Hunnam.
I'm like, let's go back to lifting the money up the mountain, so to speak.
Yeah, maybe edit differently.
And then it goes low. Hunnam gives Oscar Isaac a folded up piece of paper. Okay. It's a low because I'm upset they ended the movie like this, but I understand why they might have. He gives him the piece of paper, and it's a set of coordinates, and maybe you took this to mean something different. I took it to mean it's the coordinates where they dumped, because they had to abandon the money at some point, where they abandoned the large share of the money, the large, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
The rock music starts to play again, and Oscar Isaac disappears into the crowd.
Yeah, it ends really similarly to Silence of the Lambs. I was kind of wondering if Oscar Isaac was going to eat somebody.
Well, see, that freaking works in Silence of the Lambs. Here you're like, okay, they either don't understand what most of the movie was about or what they accidentally said or why it was good or why I liked it, I guess more personally. Or, it's just so hard to defend. Like, what's the best case scenario? They're like, life goes on. Is it one of those? Is it like a Master and Commander ending where they're like, here we go again? Because that doesn't fit either. Like, I hate that.
No. See, the way I think in my head, it's not the here we go again thing, but that ends to me is Hunnam gives him the paper. Hunnam walks away. Oscar Isaac looks at the paper, kind of smiles, and then the next thing we see is basically the exact same opening shot where he's on a helicopter. He pops the headphone in, which is now playing the Metallica stuff, and then he just looks at the coordinates, and then maybe the helicopter shows where they're at, and you go, oh, got it.
That would have been a better ending than him disappearing into the crowd, because that's like a full circle, like Mobius strip, like mind tickle. Right.
Thanks.
There.
That to me is just that's a way stronger ending.
But they didn't do that either, is my complaint.
See? Yeah. I overall though, I think for me, do you have more?
No, that's it. I liked it way more than I thought I was going to, and like I said, I think it's better than good.
100%. I agree with you. It's way better than I thought it was going to be. It's not something that I would go crazy for and I'll rewatch 100 times.
Yeah,
but
I don't think so.
I'll sit down and watch that one more time with Beth if she wants to watch it. Sure.
Yeah.
How many stars? What do you think?
Oh, you're right. We do that. Wow, it's been so long. 5 stars.
5 stars? Out of 7.
Yeah. It's a good movie. On Book Club for Movies.
And now we got to do the podcast at bookclubformovies.com. That's where you send us
stuff.
No,
we did. That's what that just was. When we talked for a bit, that was the Book Club for Movies podcast. Yeah.
Oh.
I should have led with that. I always forget to tell you before we start recording what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm not. Okay, I'm sorry. So then I guess if we did that and everybody knows Book Club for Movies podcast at 0 and points.
None of that's right. Podcast at bookclubformovies.com.
Is that right?
Bookclubformovies.com being the website.
Okay.
But also we're on Facebook and Twitter and all that.
Oh, so now the next big question is, what are we watching next week?
I know what we want to do, and you know it, and we've forgotten it, but I feel like I'll recommend it, and you'll say, oh yeah, and you'll want to do it. I'm excited. Are you ready?
Super. It's Clue.
It's...
I don't know.
You want a Clue, or you want to watch Clue?
Both.
Okay. You want to finally do Bandersnatch?
Bandersnatch. We could do Bandersnatch. That sounds good.
Does it? Are you sure?
I am sure.
Did you already watch it?
I watched one iteration of it.
Oh. Can you come at it with fresh eyes?
Oh yeah, because there are different endings. That's
what I'm saying. I feel like part of the fun of that show will be what did you choose when and what's different.
Oh, for sure.
Obviously.
Yeah. And it's short too. Actually, it's fun. It's actually only like an hour long.
Oh really? Okay.
Yeah. It's like I thought it was going to be much longer. Just based on some of the choices, I was like, okay.
You're sure? I give you full veto power here.
No, I think Bandersnatch is cool. Let's do it. All right.
Bandersnatch next week. It's on Netflix. You've probably already seen it.
Yeah, well, but I've only seen the one option.
No, I'm kidding. I joke because who am I talking to? You or the audience? Nobody ever knows. I go back and forth.
Okay, good. So next week,
yes,
Bandersnatch.
Very good.
This week, we're just going to do the rest of the show now, I think.
Yes, or we would if I had watched literally any more movies than I haven't.
Oh, well, don't I just get to be the belle of the ball today?
You do. What you got? I'm excited.
I got a couple movies here. Probably not going to go through everything, but Friday night was the final.
Everything? You're not going to go through all 2 movies?
I've got more than 2 movies, dude. I've got about 32 movies.
Oh, I misheard.
Friday night was the final episode of the first season of Joe Bob Briggs' Last Drive-In.
Oh.
And what an absolute gun this guy is. Just he's the most fun. He showed a movie that I had only ever heard of. I'd never seen it before, and so it was very entertaining. It was called Blood Harvest. And the gag to this movie, like the thing that actually makes it anything of interest, is the fact that Tiny Tim is in it, and he is a clown that is killing people.
Whoa.
and
like Tiny Tim, the stage performer?
Like tiptoe through the tulips.
You are kidding me.
I've never lied to you ever in my life, especially now.
I've never seen him in a thing. Indulge me for just 1 second. But my grandfather won an episode of The Gong Show by doing his impersonation of Tonnage Tim. And he sang Tiptoe Through the Tulips and got first prize.
That's fantastic.
Won The Gong Show.
Yeah. So Blood Harvest, creepy clown, weird musician in the movie as well. Just, it was fun. It was really fun. Like such a silly movie. It was so ridiculous. He followed that up actually with Hello, Mary Lou Prom Night 2, which is something that when I was a kid, I used to rent a whole bunch because I really liked the cover of it. Thought it was a cool movie. It's a sequel to the original Prom Night. It does not have Jamie Lee Curtis in it, so it's kind of not as good.
Not as good, yeah.
But it's got some fun stuff, and it's got some neat little things happening in it. You know, those kinds of fun stuff.
All right. Is this going? Feel like you're building something here?
I'm not. But the last thing I do want to talk about, not a movie, and I normally save this for TV volleyball, but
you're gonna TV volleyball in the middle at the end of the show.
But I don't want to. I don't want to do that because I'm going to consider this as a whole movie. So we finished Game of Thrones.
Oh. Are you sure? This is like top tier TV. I would do a TV volleyball episode sooner than later if you wanted. I might have enough shows saved up now if you want to.
This is not one that I necessarily want to get too far into. I just want to say a couple of brief things.
Okay.
Throughout the program, there have been, I think every show that has ever had that many seasons, you get some really good stuff, you get some pretty mediocre stuff, and very occasionally you get some just bad, it was not good, it didn't look good, the dialogue was bad, something about it just kind of sucked.
Coffee cup in the shop, whatever it might be.
Right, exactly. We can't guess bottled water in Westeros. Hibbity burp.
It's the sound I make when I drink bottled water.
That's right. I go hibbity burp.
Excuse
me. So my understanding is that I think the books stopped. Like they didn't have any more books from the 5th season on. I think the 5th season was the last season with a book. So 6, 7, and 8 were we don't know what's happening in the books, so we're going to make it up. Fine. Again, some choices.
Arguably.
No, I mean there were choices in the 6th and 7th season that some of them were puzzling, some of them were stupid. But overall, it was for us. Okay, that's fine. We can kind of get on board with how this is going.
And George R. Martin still very much involved. So.
Oh yeah, he was. But he also wasn't going to tell them how things were going to get from point A to point B because he hasn't that's not going to happen.
He doesn't know either. We might say.
But we were okay with where they went with the 6th and 7th season, and there was a bunch of character stuff that I think is really funny that people wig out about how Dany wouldn't do this. Dany's been a psychotic since the first season. If you didn't see her going nuts at the end of this series, I feel like you just weren't watching. But the problem that they run into beyond that they don't have any more source material. I'm fine with not having source material. It's that you find out just how good or how bad of a writer those people will be, because now you have characters that are established. You know what they would do. You know who they are as a character. And then for them to suddenly turn and become not only not that character anymore, but become like significantly dumber than they were.
Oh,
That is infuriating writing.
the lost conundrum, huh?
And totally, this last season, especially the last 3 episodes of the show, just wow. At one
good, huh?
after the other, every decision was not only do I disagree with the decisions, but I could at least be okay with them if they were written well and the explanations were greater. But the problem they have is that, again, they don't have source material. And then they decided to take this season, which, by the way, the culmination of the entire show, where the Night King is here, the army of the dead is coming to fight, Dany is now in Westeros, Cersei she has taken power over the 7 kingdoms. There is so much going on, and it is all brushed off. This whole army of the dead, seriously, we're spoiling this because it's done and I don't care. The army of the dead thing. This is from day one. You always heard winter is coming, winter is coming. This was part of it. The winter is coming thing is they're afraid because it's going to be the longest winter in like forever, and the dead are coming back. The Night King. They find out the Night King is real. The Night King brings army. People see this army getting raised over and over again because you can't, what is dead may never die. Freaking one episode. It's one episode of a battle. For you had 8 seasons of building this battle up. It goes for 50 minutes, and then the Deus Ex Machina, just Arya, because she is now she's a trained assassin, which, okay, we understand that. Legit, because she has gone through, we've seen her arc. She comes out of nowhere and kills the Night King. Night King dies, kills every other undead because he's the one who made them all. Boom, done.
Wow.
Whole battle. They lost, a number of people. I think there were in that battle, only 2, 3, 4. There were 4 characters that were major characters that die. One of them actually being a character that was important, was throughout the show. Cool. So the biggest threat is now no longer a threat. So now you're going to go and we know what's going to happen, because now you're going to go and now you've got to deal with King's Landing and Cersei and all that. It's so stupid. Everything about it is like they made so many dumb decisions. And I think one of the more infuriating decisions about it all too is how utterly stupid everybody becomes when Cersei is around. They all suddenly lose their mind and go, she's making stupid decisions. Oh, well, I guess we'll let her do it because she doesn't want to listen to us. Holy crap, how many of you have killed kings and queens before? What are you doing now?
Choosing the box instead of the fish over and over.
I cannot.
There's nothing in the box.
I know for as I sound like I'm really bothered by it, I'm not. I just think this all is it's mind boggling to me. And Cersei's death, maybe one of, if not the single most unsatisfying ends to a character I've ever seen on a TV show or in a movie ever. That was unsatisfying. There was nothing good about it.
Just dies of natural causes.
Basically, they ostensibly
chokes on a biscuit.
Yeah. She was sitting up there while the castle was falling apart. She drank a goblet of wine and went down the wrong pipe. No, she seriously.
Keels over while eating her bowl of cereal.
She does. Chex. She's a Chex Mix kind of girl.
Oh. Wait, she eats Chex Mix as a cereal?
Oh yeah. She's not smart. That's the point. She's an idiot. Up. No, but she her death is so. There's a passageway underneath the castle that can get them to one side of the the beach so that they could take a boat and leave. But of course, that part of the castle, that exit, is now crumbled. So she and Jamie, who is her brother, who has been
brother lover.
Yeah. He had just the previous episode finally moved on and ended up, after all that she does, he goes back and hugs her and says, "It's only you and me. That's all that matters." And then they get crushed by the castle, like falling apart.
Cool.
Seriously.
Cool.
The entire, and one of the just throughout, once you hit season 4, I think is when Arya starts becoming an assassin. Like she starts learning how all of it works. She throughout the show, she has a list of names of people she's going to kill. And she constantly repeats it. And it's Cersei, Joffrey, the Hound, Meryn Trent, all these people. And Cersei, she goes to King's Landing. She's like, I'm going to kill Cersei. But the building's going to collapse. So she basically is pushed away. Don't do it. Why would you not have the character who has the most ability to kill her, who killed the frigging Night King, who was not on her list, do what she was supposed to do? Like, nobody gets any satisfaction out of that. It's a terrible ending. And then there's just a couple of other really stupid decisions. And again, I hate it when characters become dumb. Like when they suddenly are like, oh, why would I do that? And two of the smartest characters in the show, it's like they suddenly took a dump and their IQ went with it.
You know, there's a lot of really interesting discussions out there. It's hard to get away from any of them. I've said before, I listened to Waypoint a bit. There's a good episode of that out there that talks a lot about how, you know, not only cultural impact, but also what do showrunners do when they run out of material for the most part, and how do you make good, and sometimes you don't.
No, and one of my favorite comparisons that I keep reading is that the Game of Thrones did exactly what The Walking Dead is still doing, except they ended it.
Right.
We're like The Walking Dead, they're still in the comic books, and we've talked about this. I know we talked about it on TV Volleyball. The fact that they take things from the books that should be 4 or 5 issues, which means it should not take an entire season, they stretch it out for no reason. And
adaptation is an art, and some of it's bad.
Some of it is very bad. And it's like, you know, what blows my mind is those I think the first 5 seasons of Game of Thrones, pretty entertaining, pretty fun. The 6th season was pretty fun. The 7th season, not as fun, but okay. And then the 8th season was just 6 episodes of, we were at the point after the 7th season, after the finale, we were like, this is such a slog. We're already bored with this. Like, we are only finishing this out to say we finished it out.
And I know there's a lot of bandwagoning, and you know, you only hear from people that, oh man, the ending is so bad. Like, this whole, the unsatisfying loop and all that stuff, that's not even like all of it. Like, there's a way to do unsatisfying with substance. You know, there's a way to do Deus Ex Machina with reason, you know, where you're still saying something, or where it just, from what I hear, again, haven't seen any of this, I just keep hearing from everywhere, because you can't not.
So, okay.
They just didn't get any of that. Or even if they thought they were, they didn't quite.
Here's a huge issue I have with and this is that Deus Ex Machina thing, is because that's what Arya is. She basically becomes a Deus Ex Machina in the sense that she can literally take another person's face and become that person. So every single person in the show is Arya, basically. Who knows? Oh. But the
Mission Impossible conundrum.
It is. But the way that the Night King is finally disposed of is so, like, it's one of those, I can't even, you've gone beyond Neo at this point. Just imagine it's like almost a staff, like a bulbous staff, because he has all these dead lined straight up to this tree, and around the tree are all the dead, and Bran Stark is sitting right there, and he is alone, and he's the person the Night King wants. Out of nowhere, getting around every single dead thing, and then jumping into midair, where he turns around and catches her. Like, he grabs her by the throat, and she drops the knife into her other hand, and right in this, and he crumbles, And
I
it's
didn't
just
think of that.
and then
She's got
right,
2 hands.
exactly. And then and I admit that the it was kind of a novel thing when he gets stabbed because the camera kind of pulls back and it just looks like dominoes, like they're all just bursting into But
Right, sure.
it was adaptation when you have the material and they did well. But I think that the last few seasons exposed them as writers because they're not very good written. The seasons are not well written. And now...
Arguably the hardest part of that anyways is just constructing a story.
Yeah. I think
multi-tiered, even multi-layered.
I guess I think what part of my problem with that argument would be, though, is the story is already there. Everything those characters were going to do, they knew ahead of time. Like, they knew. The only things they didn't maybe have defined is how is the ending immediately actually going to occur. But they knew, like, all of the stuff, where they were going, who was going where, when they were going to be there, why they would be there. So I agree in every respect that adaptation is it's a serious art, and it's really, really difficult. Ask Stephen King, because his movies are all really good. But this is a situation where I think that they are just not very good writers. I think that they were blessed with being able to work with George Martin and being able to take much of what he did and turn it into something. And they did a really good job at the beginning. But now, knowing also, which, by the way, I think this is kind of a fascinating quote from, I want to say it was Kit Harington that said this, and he said it kind of on the down low, and then it kind of got out there. But somebody had said, yeah, there's some, I didn't love how some of the endings were going on here, what was happening. And I'm wondering if it's, and this is it's a paraphrase, but the person was wondering if they weren't kind of halfway out the door, because prior to season 8 and them writing, they were hired for Star Wars, the next trilogy. So,
oh really? Yeah, I didn't know that.
And it seemed like most of the actors have not loved how the season went. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's a book in there, I'm sure. What pop culture phenomenons like this, there's always a story or two. And
indeed,
I mean, adaptation's hard. Endings are even harder. Story is hard. So everything's hard.
Everything is difficult. But what's not difficult is downloading Book Club for Movies. You do it wherever you want. iTunes is one. Leave us those cool comments, because those are apparently useful for us. But check this out. Next week, we already told you what the movie is. So go back and listen to that, because I don't remember what it is anymore. It's probably something like Bandersnatch. Yeah, but right. Check that out. That's on Netflix, streaming currently now on Netflix.
Yeah, and if I understand, it's a choose your own adventure type thing. So
it is.
Choose your own adventure and let us know what it was.
Yeah.
Or if you've already chosen it, we can have a discussion about it. We can have a book club.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember. I think there are 5 or 6 different endings.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Is it, having watched it once, would you say you're interested in watching again?
Oh yeah. No, I wanted to I wanted to rewatch it almost immediately, because I wanted to change up the directions that I took.
That bodes well.
Yeah. I mean, it really truly is choose your own adventure, and I kind of loved that when I was a kid, so.
Who didn't?
Now I love it as an adult.
Love it some more as a listener, viewer, participant in Book Club for Movies. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.